You know, we're just constantly bombarded with information these days, and there's just so much noise.
It's overwhelming.
It really is. So what if there was a way, maybe a shortcut, to get to some really foundational wisdom? Ideas that just cut through all that clutter.
Yeah, something solid.
Exactly. And that's what we're aiming for today. We're doing a deep dive into some ancient Pali suttas, specifically from a collection called the Saccasaṃyuttaṃ.
Which translates to connected discourses on the truths.
Right. And our mission, really, is to pull out the absolute core insights from these texts, see what they reveal about, well, suffering, and, maybe more importantly, how to navigate life with a bit more clarity, maybe even purpose.
Giving you the essentials straight from the source.
That deal.
And it's important to remember these aren't just like abstract philosophical treatises written in a vacuum.
No.
No, these texts are basically records of the Buddha's actual conversations, often given to his monks, his community.
Oh, right. Bhikkhus.
Exactly. And often in specific places, real locations like Savatthi or Rajagaha.
So grounded in reality.
Very much so. And what's really striking, I think, is that even though they're ancient, the way they're presented, it's not like, here's what people believed back then.
It's not just history.
Not at all. They're framed as universally applicable. Timeless guidance for anyone, really, who's looking for genuine understanding. Doesn't matter when or where you live.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If we're looking for this kind of deep foundational understanding, what's the very first thing these texts suggest? Is there like a step one?
There absolutely is, yeah. The initial instruction, you see it pop up again and again, is all about mental cultivation.
Mental cultivation, okay.
Yeah, things like developing concentration, samadhi, and also the practice of seclusion, paisalana. These are presented as, well, essential, really key.
Why seclusion specifically? Is it just about being alone?
Well, it's partly that, but it's more about creating mental space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stepping away from the constant bombardment of senses, social stuff.
Letting the mind settle.
Exactly. Letting it settle so you can observe things more clearly. That's what they say allows you to know things as they really are. Yetta hutta pajānāti.
See things clearly.
Mm-hmm. And the texts really hammer this home. There's this phrase that comes up repeatedly. Therefore, effort should be made. Tasmatiha bhikkhave, yogu karanyo.
So it's active, not just reading or thinking about it.
Precisely. It's not passive knowledge you just absorb. It requires real active engagement, deliberate practice.
Okay, so active engagement, making an effort, that's the foundation.
Yeah.
What's the first really big insight then? The thing that shifts our understanding once we've laid that groundwork.
Well, that's where we get to the heart of it, the Four Noble Truths.
Right, often called the turning of the wheel of Dharma.
That's the one. It's the central revelation. So let's start with the first truth.
Okay.
The noble truth of suffering, dukkha.
Suffering. People hear that and often think, pain, sadness.
Right, and it includes that, definitely. But what often surprises people is how incredibly broad the definition is in these texts.
Broader than just pain.
Oh, much broader. It's more like a deep, fundamental unsatisfactoriness. The texts spell it out. Birth is suffering. Aging is suffering. Sickness is suffering. Death is suffering.
The big life unavoidable things.
Exactly. But also sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair, even things like being around people you dislike or being separated from people you do like, that's suffering too.
Yeah.
And even just not getting what you want, that's a form of suffering.
It covers a lot of ground then.
It really does, and they summarize it very concisely. In brief, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering.
The 5 aggregates. Right. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. Why are they singled out as suffering?
Well, because they're what we tend to cling to as me or mine.
Right.
But they're constantly changing, impermanent.
So trying to hold on to them.
Inevitably leads to frustration, disappointment, which is fundamentally suffering. The text also mentioned the 6 senses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, as sort of the gateways for this.
Because that's how we experience the world and start clinging?
Precisely. It's through interacting with the world via our senses that we create these experiences we then attach to, leading to that dissatisfaction, dukkha.
Wow. Okay, that is a much deeper, more pervasive definition than just, ouch, that hurts. Yeah. It's like the background hum of dissatisfaction in existence.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
So if that's suffering, what's driving it? What's the engine behind this constant dissatisfaction?
Okay, so that takes us straight to the second truth, the noble truth of the origin of suffering, dukkhasamutta.
The origin, and this is
identified very specifically as craving. Tancha.
Craving.
Yeah. And they actually specify 3 main types. There's craving for sensual pleasures, which is kind of the obvious one.
Right. Wanting nice things, pleasant experiences.
Exactly. Then there's craving for existence.
For existence, meaning just wanting to live.
It's a bit deeper than that. It's more about clinging to our sense of self, our identity, wanting things to continue, even clinging to our current state, even if it involves suffering.
Huh. Clinging to suffering itself.
It can manifest that way, yeah. And the third type is craving for non-existence.
So the opposite, wanting oblivion.
Kind of. It's the urge to escape, to annihilate the self, to numb out, push things away, wishing unpleasantness would just disappear. It seems like an escape, but it's actually another form of resistance, another form of craving that just keeps the cycle going.
Wow. Okay, so craving is the root, this really persistent wanting things to be different, or wanting pleasant things, or wanting to be a certain way, or wanting not to be.
That's it. That's the engine.
So if suffering is this broad dissatisfaction, and craving is the root cause, the next logical question is, well, can it stop? Is there an end to it?
And that leads us perfectly to the third truth, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering, dukkha.
Cessation, meaning it can stop.
Yes. It's described as, let me get the phrasing right, the complete fading away and cessation of that very craving.
The targeting the craving itself.
Exactly. Giving it up, relinquishing it, being liberated from it, non-attachment. It's not about just suppressing the craving, but truly completely letting go of its root. That's presented as freedom.
Okay, so there's suffering. It comes from craving, but that craving can cease completely.
Correct.
Which naturally brings us to the big how. If freedom is possible, how do we actually get there? This must be where the practical path comes in.
Exactly right. This is the fourth truth. The noble truth of the path to the cessation of suffering. Dukkha. Quite a mouthful.
Yeah. What's the path?
This is laid out as the Noble Eightfold Path.
The Eightfold Path. Many people have heard of that one.
Right. It consists of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration.
So a comprehensive guide covering understanding, ethics, and mental discipline.
Precisely. It provides the active, practical means to actually walk towards that cessation of suffering we talked about. It guides, ideally, all aspects of your life.
That's incredibly powerful. And what really strikes me listening to this is how the texts talk about these truths. They don't seem to present them as, just the Buddha's opinion.
Not at all. They emphasize their timeless and unchanging nature.
Like universal laws.
Almost, yeah. There's this incredible conviction in the way they're presented. The texts basically say that anyone, past, present, future, doesn't matter if they were monks, lay people, whoever, anyone who genuinely strives and finds liberation, they do it by understanding these specific 4 truths. It's presented as the mechanism.
Wow.
The Buddha himself, after he understood these, is reported to have said he gained the eye of knowledge, wisdom, clear vision, and light.
That sounds profound.
And that's what led him to declare his unexcelled, perfect self-awakening. The suttas just state again and again these truths are true, unfailing, and not otherwise.
Unchanging. Not otherwise.
Yeah. They flat out state that nobody, past or future, can successfully challenge them or come up with a different set of fundamental truths about suffering, its origin, its end, and the path.
That's quite a claim.
It is. And to really underline how important these were seen to be, the texts even describe this cosmic reaction when the Buddha first taught them.
A cosmic reaction.
Yeah, like the earth shook and all these different levels of deities, from earth spirits up to the highest heavens, apparently proclaimed that this was the unexcelled turning of the wheel of Dharma throughout the entire universe.
Okay, so that definitely emphasizes their significance. But, what's equally striking and maybe more immediately relevant for us listening today is what the texts say happens if we don't grasp these truths. What are the consequences of staying ignorant?
Right. And they're very direct about this. They actually define ignorance, avijja, very specifically.
It's not just general ignorance.
No. In this context, avijja means precisely not knowing these 4 noble truths, that specific lack of understanding.
Okay. And the consequence of that is?
That ignorance is stated as the direct reason why beings keep wandering. This long wandering and circling samsara through different lives, different forms of existence.
So ignorance keeps the cycle going.
Exactly. And the texts give some pretty specific warnings about things that contribute to this ignorance or distract from the path.
Like what?
Well, obviously unwholesome thoughts like sensual desire or ill will, but also getting caught up in endless metaphysical speculations.
Speculation, like.
Debating things like, is the world eternal or not? Is the soul the same as the body or different? What happens to someone who's liberated after they die? Those kinds of questions.
Things you can't really know for sure through experience.
Right. The texts basically say, look, getting bogged down in that, or even in just contentious arguments or mundane gossip, chatting about kings, thieves, food, clothes, whatever.
Everyday chatter.
Yeah, they call it not conducive to benefit, not conducive to liberation, not conducive to nibbana.
So distractions, essentially.
It time.
Huh?
The only thinking and conversation they frame as truly beneficial is the kind that leads towards understanding these four noble truths.
So this ignorance isn't just a passive lack of information. It's an active misapprehension that keeps us trapped, cycling through, well, suffering.
That's the idea. And some of the imagery they use to describe this is quite intense.
Intense how?
Well, they say that without understanding these truths, beings actually delight in the conditions connected with birth, aging, death, sorrow, pain, and so on.
Delight in them. That sounds paradoxical.
It is, isn't it? But it's like, by not seeing the underlying unsatisfactoriness, we keep investing in these temporary, changing conditions, which just perpetuates the whole cycle. And these states, this cycle, is described as being like greater and more terrifying falls than falling off a cliff.
Wow.
Or greater and more terrifying burns than even being in a hell realm, a state where supposedly all sensory experience becomes unpleasant.
So the suffering of ignorance is worse than physical falls or imagined hells.
That's the implication. There's another simile, too. Imagine throwing a stick in the air. It lands randomly on its end, its middle, its other end.
Okay.
That's how beings lost in ignorance wander, aimlessly, randomly, between different states of existence, with no real direction or control.
Just tumbling through existence without understanding why.
Pretty much.
And didn't you mention something earlier about how rare it is to even get the chance to understand it, the turtle analogy?
Ah, yes, the blind turtle. That one really paints a picture.
How does it go again?
Okay, imagine the entire world is one vast ocean, and floating on this ocean is a single wooden yoke, like an ox yoke, with just one hole in it.
Okay, one yoke, one hole, vast ocean.
And at the bottom of this ocean lives a blind sea turtle. This turtle surfaces for air only once every 100 years.
Once a century. Wow.
The texts ask, what are the chances that when that blind turtle surfaces once a century, its head will just happen to pop up through that single hole in that single yoke, floating randomly on the vast ocean?
Vanishingly small. Practically impossible.
Exactly. And that, the texts say, is how rare it is to be reborn as a human being, especially during a time and in a place where these teachings, the Dharma, are actually available.
Good grief. That really drives home the preciousness of this opportunity.
It really does. They constantly emphasize how few beings are reborn as humans, or in places where the Dharma is known, or who possess the capacity for wisdom, the eye of wisdom, compared to the immense numbers born in, well, less fortunate circumstances or states of deep ignorance.
And it's not just about being born human, is it? It's also about conduct.
Right. They also point out how few beings actively abstain from unwholesome actions.
Like the big ones, killing, stealing, lying.
Yes, those, but also more subtle things. Harsh speech, divisive talk, just frivolous chatter, even things like harming plant life unnecessarily, eating at inappropriate times according to monastic rules, self-adornment, engaging in certain types of trade, fraud, violence. The list can be quite extensive.
Wow. So acting skillfully is also rare.
And this prevalence of unskillful action, they say, is directly linked back to
Not seeing the Four Noble Truths.
exactly. It all stems from that fundamental ignorance.
Okay, so the picture painted for those without this understanding is pretty stark. Aimless wandering, immense suffering, and a vanishingly rare chance to find the way out. But for those who do grasp these truths, the change must be equally dramatic.
Oh, absolutely. And the texts use similes that are just as grand, but in the opposite direction to show the magnitude of the transformation.
How so?
They try to convey the sheer volume of suffering we've already experienced in countless past lives compared to how little remains once you truly understand these truths.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine taking just a tiny speck of dust on your fingernail.
Got it. Tiny speck.
Now compare that tiny speck to the mass of the entire Earth.
Okay, no comparison, really.
Right. The suffering that remains for someone who has truly seen the truth, they say, is like that tiny speck of dust. The suffering they've already exhausted by gaining that understanding is like the entire earth.
That's immense.
It is. Or another one, compare a few drops of water you might splash out of a huge pond or out of all the great rivers converging. The remaining suffering is like those few drops. The suffering left behind is like the entire pond or all those rivers combined. Or compare a few mustard seeds to the entire Himalayan mountain range.
So the suffering left is insignificant compared to what's been overcome by that understanding.
That's exactly the point they're making. For someone called a stream enterer, someone who's decisively entered the path.
They've seen the truth correctly.
Yes, they have that direct seeing. For them, the texts say, the suffering left is insignificant compared to what's finished, and they're guaranteed liberation within, at most, 7 more births.
Only 7 more lifetimes, Max. That's incredible compared to aimless wandering.
It is, and this understanding, once gained, is described as unshakable.
How so?
They compare someone who truly understands these truths to, say, a massive iron pillar deeply embedded in the ground and in Dakila, or a stone post sunk deep, completely stable.
Immovable.
Exactly. Impossible to shake, impossible to overturn. No argument, no persuasion from any direction can sway their fundamental understanding of these 4 truths. Their wisdom is firm.
That's quite a transformation.
Yeah.
From aimless wandering to unshakable clarity. So, wrapping this all up, what does this mean for us, for you listening right now? What's the practical takeaway from diving into these really profound ancient texts? It's clearly not just, ancient philosophy 101.
No, definitely not. And the practical takeaway is actually hammered home by the texts themselves. Remember that refrain we started with?
Therefore, effort should be made.
Exactly. Therefore, effort should be made with regard to suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path to its cessation. That's the constant call.
So it comes back to action.
Always. It's not just a philosophy to understand with your intellect, although that's part of it. It's fundamentally a call to do something, to actively observe these truths in your own experience, to comprehend them deeply, and then to actually apply them in your life through the path.
And the promise is?
The promise, or the suggestion, is that by truly understanding these truths, you gain this light, this clarity. It allows you to navigate the world completely differently, to consciously reduce the suffering you experience and create, and to actively move towards real, lasting freedom, liberation.
What a powerful journey through these foundational teachings. It really feels like the wisdom of the Four Noble Truths offers this incredibly direct, unchanging path to understanding why we suffer and, crucially, how to move beyond it.
A path that's always available, according to these texts.
But one that, as we've heard repeatedly, requires that focused, active effort. It won't happen just by listening.
That's right. So maybe as you go about your day after listening to this, just consider which of those unprofitable thoughts or conversations the text mentioned might be subtly playing out in your own life.
The distractions, the speculations, the gossip.
Yeah. Could any of those be maybe preventing you from seeing the nature of suffering and freedom a bit more clearly in your own experience? And maybe ask yourself, where could you apply just a little bit of that effort the text talks so much about? Where could you bring a bit more attention, more clarity, more freedom right now?